I had just signed the papers for my dream villa, a gleaming seaside escape that cost more than I ever imagined I could afford. 20 years of clawing my way up from nothing had finally given me this, a place that was mine, built from sweat, sleepless nights, and stubborn resilience. And then the phone rang. It was Linda, my stepmother. Her voice sliced through my moment of peace. "We'll be staying there for 3 weeks," she announced, as if it were already decided. 20 relatives are coming. Prepare the rooms, stock the fridge, cook for everyone." I froze for half a second. The very woman who once treated me like I didn't belong was now ordering me around as if I were her maid. But instead of arguing, I smiled. Because Linda had no idea this time. I wasn't the powerless girl she used to control. A surprise was waiting for them. I wasn't born into wealth or comfort. My early years looked normal from the outside. A small house in a quiet coastal town, my mom's gentle smile lighting up the kitchen, my dad reading the newspaper after work. But that illusion shattered when I was 8 years old. It was raining the afternoon my world collapsed. My mother, driving back from picking up groceries, never made it home. A truck skidded on the slick road and slammed into her car. By the time we reached the hospital, she was gone. I remember clinging to my father's sleeve, my tears soaking into the fabric of his coat, while he whispered, "I'll take care of you, Sophia, I promise." That promise didn't last long. Only months later, he met Linda. She was all charm at first, blonde hair, perfectly styled, a confident laugh, perfume so strong it lingered in every room. She worked in real estate, and she knew how to sell herself. Soon, she wasn't just visiting on weekends, she was moving her suitcases into our home. At first, I tried to believe she might care. She cooked extravagant meals, asked me about school, even bought me a dress one time. But beneath the surface, there was a chill. The moment my father's back was turned, Linda's smile hardened. "You're too messy, Sophia," she snapped when I left my shoes by the door. "Don't embarrass us." When my father remarried her, just 8 months after Mom's funeral, I felt betrayed in a way I couldn't put into words. I wanted to scream, "Too soon, Dad. Don't you miss her? Don't you miss me?" But I stayed quiet, swallowing the lump in my throat. Then came Chloe. My half-sister, with her big blue eyes and golden curls, was treated like a princess from the moment she was born. Linda hovered over her crib, as if she were the crown jewel of the family. My father joined in, doting on Chloe, cooing, "Daddy's little angel." And me? I was the shadow in the corner. On Chloe's birthdays, the house filled with balloons, cake, and piles of gifts. On mine, Linda would shrug and say, "You're too old for parties. A quiet dinner is enough." My father never argued. Meals became lonely. Chloe had her toasted bread with strawberry jam, her warm glass of milk, while I poured myself cold cereal from the box. If I asked my dad a question, Linda's sharp eyes cut me down. Children shouldn't interrupt adult conversations. Slowly, I stopped speaking. I learned what it meant to be invisible. But silence doesn't mean weakness. Each slight, each dismissal, planted a seed inside me. A stubborn determination grew where love should have been. I began to whisper to myself at night, lying in bed, "Be strong, Sophia. One day you'll escape this house. One day you'll prove them wrong." By the time I turned 15, I already knew no one in that house was going to rescue me. My father had retreated fully into Linda's world, following her lead like a shadow. And Linda? She didn't see me as a daughter. To her, I was an obstacle, a leftover from my father's first marriage. So I made a decision. If they weren't going to take care of me, I'd take care of myself. My first job was bussing tables at a small diner called the Harbor Grill. The owner, a gruff man with a kind heart, hesitated when I asked for work. "You're young, kid. Can you handle it?" "I can," I said firmly, even though my hands trembled. That first night, I spilled a tray of water and burned my palm on a hot plate. Linda would have mocked me, but the owner just handed me a towel and said, "Shake it off. You'll get better." For the first time in years, I felt someone believed I could. The money wasn't much, $60 a week if I was lucky. But when I held those crumpled bills, I felt a kind of pride Linda could never steal. I hid the cash in an old shoebox under my bed, counting it over and over like it was treasure. "Of course," Linda noticed. "Where have you been wandering every night?" she demanded one evening, her eyes narrowing. "At work," I answered, lifting my chin. She sneered. "Don't embarrass this family. People will think we can't provide for you." My father just muttered, "She's grown up, Linda," and returned to his newspaper. That was all the support I got. But I didn't need their approval. Every dollar meant freedom. I saved for school books, clothes, and eventually a used bicycle that carried me to shifts at the diner and back. When I pedaled home late at night, the salty wind in my hair, I whispered to myself, "This is just the beginning." I also learned to cook simple meals, spaghetti with canned sauce, scrambled eggs, soups from cheap vegetables. Chloe never lifted a finger in the kitchen, but Linda praised her endlessly. "She's so talented," she'd gush when Chloe learned a piano piece. When I quietly showed her a report card with straight A's, Linda glanced once and said, "That's expected. Don't brag." It stung, but it hardened me. Their coldness became my fuel. At school, I kept my head down, studying while others laughed with friends. I didn't have the luxury of carefree teenage years. When other girls were dreaming of prom dresses, I was calculating how much more I needed for college applications. Some nights, I lay awake, my stomach empty because I'd skipped dinner to save leftovers for Chloe. But instead of crying, I told myself, "One day, you'll walk out of this house and never look back. One day, your life will be yours." I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building the foundation of the woman I was determined to become. By the time high school ended, I had scraped together enough money for college applications. Not from my father's support, he offered none, but from countless late nights at the diner, double shifts during summer, and tutoring younger kids in math. When the acceptance letter from a state university arrived, I sat on my bed, hands trembling. A partial scholarship covered part of my tuition, but the rest was on me. I cried not from fear, but from pride. I had done it without them. Of course, Linda wasn't impressed. "University?" she scoffed when I told her. "Don't waste your time. You'll just end up working in some office cubicle." My father didn't argue, didn't even congratulate me. Just a distracted, "Good, handle it yourself." And so I did. I packed my few clothes, my savings hidden in an envelope, and moved into a cramped dorm room that smelled of instant noodles and laundry detergent. 3 roommates, squeaky bunk beds, and shared bathrooms weren't glamorous, but it was mine. For the first time in my life, I felt free. Life quickly became an exhausting cycle. Classes from morning to late afternoon, then shifts at the student cafe or shelving books at the library. Weekends, I picked up hours at a supermarket to make ends meet. There were nights I fainted onto my desk, my stomach aching from skipping meals, but I refused to quit. Finance became my refuge. Numbers were honest. They didn't lie, didn't favor Chloe over me. I buried myself in textbooks like The Intelligent Investor and Principles of Corporate Finance, whispering to myself at 2 a.m., "This knowledge will be my ticket out." Loneliness was constant. Friends went out for parties, but I stayed behind, calculating expenses or finishing assignments. Sometimes, when I called home out of guilt, the conversation was cold. My father, "How's school?" Me, "Hard, but I'm managing." "Ah." Linda's voice cutting in, "Don't come begging for money. We're not your bank." I hung up, pressing my forehead against the desk, tears welling but never falling. 4 years passed in a blur of exhaustion. On graduation day, I stood in my cap and gown under the blistering summer sun, clutching my finance degree. Around me, classmates hugged their families, posing for cheerful photos. I stood alone, smiling through the ache in my chest. "Still," I whispered, "you did it, Sophia. You carried yourself across the finish line." The job hunt wasn't easy. Hundreds of resumes sent out, most met with silence or rejection. Each, "We've chosen another candidate," cut deep. But I pushed on until, finally, a firm specializing in wealth management gave me a chance. Walking into that glass-walled office on my first day, I felt the weight of every night I'd gone hungry, every birthday forgotten, every sneer from Linda. This was my new beginning. And though I was the lowest on the ladder, with no connections and no family name to back me up, I had something stronger, unyielding resilience. The first year at the wealth management firm was brutal. I was the rookie, assigned the grunt work, cold calls, endless spreadsheets, and long nights correcting mistakes no one else wanted to touch. Many times, I stared at the clock near midnight, my eyes burning from staring at financial models, wondering if I was cut out for this. But quitting? That wasn't an option. I had clawed my way too far to stop. I started arriving earlier than everyone else, scanning market reports at 6 a.m. I stayed later too, volunteering for the hardest cases. Slowly, the partners noticed. My resilience, sharpened by years of being dismissed at home, became my greatest strength. It was during one of those endless weeks that I first noticed Daniel. He was a client, an entrepreneur trying to expand his small tech business. He walked into the office with tired eyes but an easy smile, carrying the kind of restless ambition I recognized instantly. Our first meeting was supposed to be purely professional. I explained investment options, portfolio risks, and long-term strategies. But somehow, the conversation drifted. "You sound like someone who's fought for everything you have," he said, leaning back in his chair. I hesitated, then nodded. "You could say that." Over the next months, business meetings turned into casual coffee chats. He shared stories of sleepless nights coding in his garage, of investors who doubted him. I confessed pieces of my own past, never in detail, but enough for him to understand the hunger behind my work. Daniel didn't look at me with pity. He looked at me with respect. And that, more than anything, pulled me in. Our first official date was simple, cheap Chinese takeout eaten on a park bench overlooking the river. It wasn't glamorous, but when he laughed at my sarcastic jokes, when he reached for my hand and held it without hesitation, I felt something I had never felt before. Safety. Years of walls I had built around myself began to crack. With Daniel, I didn't have to prove my worth every second. He saw it already. As our relationship deepened, so did my career. I earned promotions, took on wealthier clients, and built a reputation for being relentless yet trustworthy. But no achievement felt as meaningful as the night Daniel proposed. It was raining, lightly fitting, since rain had marked so many turning points in my life. We stood on the balcony of his small apartment, city lights flickering in the distance. He held out a modest ring, his voice unsteady. "Sophia, you've built everything on your own. But would you let me build the future with you?" I cried, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that I wasn't alone anymore. We married in a quiet ceremony with only a handful of friends. No father to walk me down the aisle, no stepmother sneering from the front row. Just love, raw and genuine. A year later, our daughter, Emma, was born. When I held her tiny fingers in mine, I made a vow. You will never feel invisible. You will always know you are loved. For the first time, I understood what true family meant. Not blood, not obligation, but choice. By the time I turned 34, life felt almost unrecognizable compared to the girl who once ate cold cereal alone at the kitchen table. Daniel's company was thriving. My own portfolio of clients had grown steadily, and together we had built a small but solid financial foundation. One evening, after putting Emma to bed, Daniel poured me a glass of wine and said, "It's time we invest in something for us. Something permanent." That's when the idea of a villa by the sea took root. For me, the ocean had always been bittersweet. As a child, I used to sit on the sand during family outings, watching Chloe build castles with Linda's help while I sat under an umbrella alone. I dreamed of having a place by the water, where no one could tell me I didn't belong. A place that was mine. Now, finally, that dream could become real. We searched for months, traveling up and down the California coast. Most houses were either too small, too rundown, or too sterile to feel like home. But then we founded a modern villa perched on a cliff, overlooking the endless expanse of blue. The moment I stepped onto the porch and felt the salty breeze whip through my hair, I knew. Floor-to-ceiling windows welcomed the morning sun. An infinity pool sparkled as if it melted into the horizon. The kitchen gleamed with marble counters, the bedrooms spacious and full of light. There was even a small garden where I imagined Emma chasing butterflies. Daniel squeezed my hand. "This is it, Sophia." Signing the contract made my hand tremble. The number 2.7 million seemed unreal. 20 years ago, I had counted crumpled dollar bills in a shoebox. Now I was signing for a property I once couldn't have dreamed of entering as a guest. When the papers were finalized, I closed my eyes and whispered, "This is ours." The first time we brought Emma to the villa, it was a golden afternoon. She darted barefoot across the sand, her laughter echoing over the waves. "Mommy, look, seashells," she cried, holding up her tiny treasure. I stood with Daniel on the porch, my arms around his waist, tears stinging my eyes. "This is everything I ever wanted," I whispered. That week was magic. We grilled dinners outside as the sun dipped behind the horizon, the sky painted in pinks and oranges. We swam in the pool until our fingers wrinkled. At night, we sat by the fire pit, Emma curled in my lap, the stars scattered across the dark sky. The villa wasn't just a property, it was healing. Every stone, every wave crashing against the shore reminded me that I had survived, that the lonely little girl had grown into a woman who built a real family, one filled with laughter instead of silence. Financially, it was also a smart move. When we weren't staying there, we listed it for short-term rentals. Within weeks, it was bringing in steady income, another layer of security for our future. But to me, the villa's true value couldn't be measured in dollars. It was the symbol of everything Linda had tried to convince me I could never be. Successful, loved, worthy. I thought nothing could disturb the peace of that new chapter. I was wrong, because word of the villa soon spread to the very people who had once dismissed me as nothing. It started with a phone call I hadn't expected. I was tidying up the villa's kitchen one Tuesday morning when my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in months. Dad. My stomach tightened, the way it always did when the past tried to intrude on the present. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Sophia," he said awkwardly. "I heard you bought a place by the sea. That true?" I hesitated. "Yes, Daniel and I invested in a villa." "Why?" In the background, I heard Linda's unmistakable voice, sharp, commanding. She didn't bother with greetings. "Perfect. We'll come this weekend. Just a few days to relax. Chloe will love it." I froze. After years of indifference, they thought they could just slide into my life like guests checking into a hotel? I forced a smile into my voice. "I'll arrange something through the resort staff. They'll prepare rooms." Keeping it distant, professional, safe. They came, stayed 3 days, left behind dirty sheets and a fridge half empty. Linda called afterward, her tone dripping with entitlement. The rooms were nice, but really, Sophia, you should have stocked more fresh fruit. And the seafood? Disappointing. Next time, be better prepared. Next time. Her words made my jaw tighten, but I swallowed my anger. Maybe if I endured once, it would end. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, another call. This time, Dad's voice carried false cheer. "Your mom and I want to come back at the end of the month. Linda's been stressed from work. Just 4 days." Before I could answer, Linda snatched the phone. "Cancel your renters. You're well off now. What's a little lost money? Family should come first." I nearly laughed at the hypocrisy. Family? When had I ever been family to them? Still, against Daniel's protest, I agreed once more. But the demands grew bolder. They arrived unannounced one night, their car parked at the villa's gate without warning. A message from Dad buzzed on my phone. "We came suddenly. Chloe wants to swim." I canceled a rental last minute, losing hundreds in compensation. That night, as I watched them on the security cameras, splashing in the pool like it was theirs, my chest tightened with the same suffocating ache I'd felt as a girl erased, unwanted, powerless. Daniel noticed my clenched fists. "Honey, they're abusing you," he said quietly. "This isn't family. This is theft." I nodded, but the old guilt whispered, "He's still your father." Then came the call that shattered any lingering hesitation. One morning, while I reviewed client reports in my office, my phone rang. Linda's shrill voice cut straight through me. "Sophia, listen carefully. Chloe's introducing her fiancé soon. His parents are flying in from New York. We need the villa for 3 weeks. 20 relatives are coming. Prepare all the rooms, fill the fridge with fresh seafood, French wine, the works, and don't forget a chef. We can't look stingy." I sat in stunned silence, my hand gripping the phone so hard, My knuckles turned white. 3 weeks? With 20 people? Linda, this isn't... She cut me off. Don't argue. Your father already agreed. Be a good daughter. Handle it. And then click. The line went dead. I sat frozen, anger surging like a storm tide. This wasn't a request. This was a command, an invasion. The little girl they had dismissed might have obeyed, but the woman I had become, I smiled coldly to myself. They had no idea what awaited them. 3 weeks later, they descended on my villa like an invading army. Through the security cameras, I watched car after car pull into the driveway, trunks overflowing with suitcases, children shouting, adults laughing too loudly. Chloe walked proudly beside her fiancé, Ryan, as if the place already belonged to her. Linda wasted no time. She strutted into the villa's living room, her heels clicking on the polished floor. To the group of distant relatives and Ryan's parents, she announced, "This is our villa bought by Stephen for Chloe's future. Isn't it magnificent?" My blood boiled as I listened through the audio feed. Our villa? Chloe's future? My name, the one on every document, every payment, erased as if I didn't exist. The next days were chaos. Loud music by the pool, empty wine bottles rolling on the porch, cigarette smoke staining the air. They raided the fridge, devouring the seafood I had stocked. Linda called me once to complain. We ran out of lobster too quickly. Next time, send more. I bit my lip, forcing myself to answer sweetly. I'll make a note of that. But behind the calm, I was preparing. Tom, the resort manager, was on my side. When I explained the situation, he nodded knowingly. I've seen freeloaders before, but this is next level. Don't worry, Sophia, we'll handle it. So we planned. On the final morning of their vacation, while they bustled about packing, laughing about the parties they had hosted, Tom was ready at the reception desk. The marble-floored lobby buzzed with other guests checking in and out, tourists with suitcases, families snapping photos, couples whispering to each other. Perfect witnesses. Linda led the parade into the lobby, Ryan's parents close behind with polite but weary expressions. She barked orders to her relatives. "Hurry, Chloe. Don't forget the wine boxes. Stephen, carry the gifts for Ryan's family." Then Tom's calm voice rang out. "Good morning, guests. I hope your stay was comfortable. Here is your invoice for 21 nights, including full use of facilities, catering services, and premium cleaning. Total, 19,250. Payment due now, by card or transfer." The lobby went silent. Linda blinked, stunned, then screeched. "Invoice? Are you out of your mind? This is our villa." Gasps rippled among bystanders. Ryan's mother frowned, whispering to her husband. "I thought they said it was theirs?" My father grabbed the paper with trembling hands, his face draining of color as he read the total. "This must be a mistake," he muttered, sweat trickling down his temples. Tom's tone didn't waver. "No mistake. The property is registered under Ms. Sophia Carter. She authorized this as a fully payable stay." That was my cue. "Daniel, little Emma," and I stepped forward from the corner of the lobby where we had been quietly observing. Emma clutched my hand, her wide eyes reflecting the chaos. Linda's face turned purple when she saw me. She charged forward, waving the invoice in my face. "Sophia, what the hell are you doing? You're humiliating us. This is your family." I held her gaze, my voice cold but steady. "No, Linda, you are guests. And guests pay for their stay." Ryan's parents exchanged horrified looks. Ryan himself pulled Chloe aside. "You told me this villa was your family's property," he hissed. Chloe's cheeks flushed crimson, tears already welling. Linda's shrill voice rose, echoing through the lobby. "Ungrateful brat. After everything we did for you, you repay us like this?" I almost laughed. "Everything you did for me? Neglect? Insults? And now theft?" I leaned closer, my words sharp as glass. "You never raised me. You never loved me. And you will not steal from me. Not anymore." Gasps again from the crowd. Even the tourists checking in paused to watch, eyes wide with fascination at the unfolding drama. My father, his face red with humiliation, suddenly snapped. He grabbed my arm, snarling, "You dare shame me like this in front of everyone? I'll teach you respect." Before his grip tightened, two resort security guards stepped forward, their voices firm. "Sir, release her. Now. Or we call the police." He froze, then released me with a violent shove, his chest heaving. Linda screamed at him, "Do something, Stephen! Don't let her ruin us!" But it was too late. Tom cleared his throat, loud enough for all to hear. "Unless payment is made, we are authorized to hold luggage and contact authorities." Ryan's father stepped forward, his face stiff with disgust. "We'll pay, just to end this embarrassment. But let me be clear, our son will not marry into a family that lies, exploits, and pretends wealth they don't have." Chloe burst into tears, clinging to Ryan, but he shook his head, unable to meet her eyes. The engagement was over, right there in the middle of the lobby. Linda's relatives murmured in panic. Some lowered their eyes in shame, others muttered angrily under their breath. My father and Linda, pale and trembling, had no choice but to borrow money from Ryan's family to cover the bill. The humiliation was complete. Tom processed the payment calmly, printed the receipt, and handed it back with a polite smile. "Thank you. We wish you safe travels." As they dragged their suitcases out of the lobby, heads bowed, whispers from onlookers followed them like shadows. So it wasn't theirs. Imagine pretending like that. How shameless. I stood tall, Emma's hand still in mine, Daniel's steady presence beside me. For the first time, I felt the weight of the past lifting. Linda turned once more at the door, her face twisted with rage. "You'll regret this, Sophia. You've destroyed your own family," I answered with calm finality. "Family isn't built on lies, Linda. It's built on love and respect. Things you never gave me." Her mouth opened to retort, but no words came. She turned away, humiliated, and left. The moment the doors closed behind them, I exhaled deeply, my chest light. It wasn't just a confrontation, it was liberation. For years I had been the invisible girl. But that day, in front of strangers and so-called relatives, I finally made them see me. Not as their scapegoat, not as their maid, but as the woman who owned her life and her villa. The villa was quiet again. No shouting, no demands, no footsteps of people who had never respected me. Just the rhythm of the waves and the laughter of my daughter echoing across the pool. That evening, Daniel and I sat on the porch, Emma curled between us as the sky blazed orange and pink. I looked out at the sea, remembering the little girl who once sat alone at family dinners, invisible and unwanted. Now, I wasn't invisible. I was free. My father and Linda never called again. Through distant whispers, I heard Chloe's engagement had collapsed completely. Their family name, once flaunted with pride, was now whispered with pity. But I felt no guilt. They had reaped what they sowed. I turned to Daniel, kissed Emma's forehead, and whispered, "This is my family. The one I chose. The one I built." Because true family isn't about blood. It isn't about duty. It's about the people who stand by you, who respect you, who love you without conditions. To anyone still trapped by toxic ties, my message is simple. Be brave enough to cut the chain. Only then will you have space to build the happiness you truly deserve.